Hi, I'm Molly Weiss,
And I'm Blake Wood from InvestNet.
and we are live at Futureproof with Mike Doniger, who runs platform partnerships at iCapital. Thanks for joining us, Mike.
Thank you for having me.
So, Mike, from your perspective, what is the biggest shift happening in WealthTech right now, and how are you and iCapital positioned to help advisors adapt?
I think in wealth tech in general, right, there's a big focus on how businesses are scaling, and I think you guys know this well, but a big shift to UMA portfolio management, and connecting more experiences for advisors across the board. I think less point solutions. I think that's why at iCapital we're focused on partnering with advisor-facing platforms and being where the advisor is. I think there's a lot of focus on the alternative investment space right now, and traditionally it's been another asset class or conversation with advisors that's off to the side. And there's been a big focus on bringing that together with traditional wealth management and enabling that to be part of the core wealth management conversation and part of the same portfolio with public assets.
So how do what's your elevator pitch for the suite of solutions that iCapital brings to the marketplace to help with those things?
Yep. So iCapital provides at trade and post trade capabilities and really an ecosystem to advisors for private investments. And, with some of the acquisitions we've done over the last few years, we've actually expanded the definition of alternative investments to not just include private assets, but also structured investments, annuities. So anything that's non-traditional, bringing it together on one platform and providing clients who are advisors and RIAs with, more streamlined workflows to what had traditionally been more friction-filled asset classes.
And as iCapital is doing that, I'll use the word democratizing access to alternatives. How do you do that, but also ensure that you're being responsible so investors know what they're buying, right? What used to be a solution for the ultra high end is moving down to the mass markets.
I think a couple of things. One, a big component of our platform is education. So especially with broker dealers, they mandate their advisors to go through both asset class and product specific education before leveraging it with clients. And our platform is configured that way to create blocks and the right checkpoints to make sure that advisors are up to speed on specific investment types before using them in client portfolios. I think in addition to that, right, in terms of democratization, especially like specific to private investments, there's been a lot of product innovation over the last few years, and a big shift to evergreen and registered funds. Right, iCapital started mostly with drawdown funds, feeder funds to give access to the wealth management space, but with these registered vehicles with smaller minimums, it really broadened the advisors that use them, the types of clients that can invest with them, and it's made the conversation around portfolios and models more relevant.
So I think, that probably all is in support of this idea of, alternatives have been around in the institutional space for a long time and they're mature and well understood. I think going into the RIA market in particular, how is iCapital thinking about, that transition or meeting that need?
So iCapital was created really to serve like the independent market, right? So we started as like a platform and a GP, essentially creating feeders for the RIA or independent space. Our marketplace, which is our baseline offering that serves many RIAs and smaller independent broker dealers, is our flagship menu. It's over 300 products, ranging from QP products to sub-accredited products, and it's drawdown and evergreen. So there's a lot of variety there, and so we've tried to create access through that marketplace, but then B, the platform really streamlines operations for advisors and allows them to manage the entire life cycle of the fund in a seamless digital way, making the asset class more accessible.
So firms and advisors are getting told they've got to have, an asset class and allocation to alternatives, but the integration with these types of products to the portfolios isn't as straightforward. What's the biggest misconception that you see about how these sort of investments can fit in with the client portfolio, and how is iCapital helping move that forward?
So I think that's why a lot of our focus has been on partnerships like we have with you guys. And I mentioned it before, being where the advisor is and having it be part of the same portfolio views and thought process that the rest of the portfolio is. So it's a more natural way to add alts, right, to the conversation. And it could be part of similar workflows that the advisor is already going through. Obviously, there is some education for the advisor on what the benefits are for a client to include these types of investments in a portfolio. But that coupled with like there's more digestible products like where the minimums are smaller and it's from some of the largest asset managers and it's a little closer to investing in a fund, right? I think all those things coming together are kind of how you're going to get advisors to start. I think there's a big focus and shift of models, right? Because that's how advisors are used to building and managing client portfolios. And if there's a public-private model that they could take off the shelf, it lowers the burden of them having to understand how to construct a portfolio using these types of investments. And they can trust, a BlackRock of who they've already been trusting for the rest of their portfolio to include it and then get up to speed on the asset class as they do that. I think everyone's trying to find like the easy button. We're not quite at SMAs yet, but I think models is the first step there.
So do you think that, like in your conversations with the independents, are the clients, the investors coming to their advisors and saying, I want an alternative, or kind of which direction is the pull? And then what kinds of barriers do you hear advisors saying that they're encountering when trying to deliver the alternative?
I think it's a little bit of both, right? I think, that you've seen huge interest in the private credit space over the last few years. And some of that, I think, was a way to diversify the type of yields that advisors were getting. So I do think it's a little bit of both, especially as you move up to higher net worth clients. I think it is more, I think the models is knocking down one of those barriers, right? I think that's why you see a lot of GPs and asset managers either creating, and we're doing it on iCapital as well, creating alts allocation models. So there's an answer for that sleeve of the portfolio or total portfolio models that include alts. Because I think it takes away some of that like selection paralysis, and because it's more of a packaged product than a turnkey solution, it takes away some of that barrier. But I do still think like there's an education need there for advisors to be able to tell the story to clients. We created a portfolio construction tool called Architect that basically gives some of those talking points, particularly to RIAs, and help them explain the trade-offs in having a less liquid investment within the portfolio, but what the benefits are and why it can make sense.
So education's there, integration's getting better, that easy button, as you said. In the next 5 to 10 years, do you see private markets being still that ultra high net worth solution, or does it start moving into that mass market where it becomes part of that core allocation to a portfolio?
I think we're already starting to see it come down, right? It was traditionally ultra high net worth. It's probably now high net worth. I think the cutoffs and definitions are different in certain places. It's probably not touching the top of what you would consider mass affluent, because, like at iCapital and our alts models that we've created, they're meant for like $1 million portfolio and to be like $100,000 to $150,000 allocation. So that's starting to get into the lower end of high net worth, high end of mass affluent. And, I don't know how much further down it makes sense to go from there, but it's definitely a wider audience than it previously was.
All right. Well, you made it to the speed round and you mentioned crypto. So do you think crypto in portfolios is flash in the pan or here to stay?
I've been wrong on this question for about 10 years. So I think that it's an opportunistic type investment that some segment of clients are always going to have interest in. I'm not sure it's a portfolio allocation. But again, I've been wrong for a while on it. So
we'll follow up with another one sort of adjacent. So royalty payments, whether it's on music, whether it's on, energy, is that a niche solution for ultra high net worth, or is it something that becomes a product for the mass affluent?
I think I think like a lot of other private investing, it probably expands the audience it goes to. But I think in and of itself, it is a niche solution and then like an esoteric sub-asset class. But it's another kind of search for yield or cash flow. So it definitely plays a role. And I think as some of what used to be traditionally more private funds scale down to be more credited and more available via registered funds, there probably is more access there for the lower end of high net worth or mass affluent.
All right. So everyone talks about this great wealth transfer and how that's occurring or is going to occur. Do you think it's going to reshape the industry?
I mean, I definitely think that millennials and Gen Z interact differently. But having kind of spent time in consumer fintech as well, I think like how 20 and 30-year-olds act now and acted, whatever call it, 20, 30 years ago is probably not that different. And how same with 40 and 50-year-olds. So I think like as you age, you have different needs that look more alike to the way the industry is operated. And like, I do think there'll be adjustments, but, and need for certain changes. But like, I think, as you age, as you gain more wealth, I think, people like from an advisor standpoint, having someone to talk to and maybe how you meet with them and engage with them changes a little bit. But I think people like having that trusted human that they could bounce ideas off of or ask questions to. And I don't think like robo advisors are taking over the world.
No, I don't either.
So last question of the rapid fire. What is the one thing of old wealth management you'd throw out tomorrow if you could?
Well, paper is one of the...
Paper.
Yeah.
Good answer.
No more PDFs.
Swivel chair and paper.
Yeah, it's swivel chair and paper. Paper is definitely one of them. I think one of the changes that I think in terms of that advisors are seeing is like the types of conversations and the services they provide have to be kind of more holistic and expansive. And it's not just about investments, right? Yeah. And then the portfolio. So I think it's a broader conversation. And a lot of advisors will say they feel like psychiatrists sometimes, but I think you're talking about more than just the investments. So.
Thank you, Mike. Thanks for joining us. Awesome to have you. That was Mike Doniger from iCapital.
Great being here. Thank you.